I'm Stacy Costell, the CEO for the Coalition for College. Today, you will hear from 3 coalition members on tips for building your college list. I'd like to welcome my panelists. Can each of you introduce yourself, the institution you represent, and a bit about your school? Cornell, we'll start with you.
Oh, happy to start. Hello to everyone virtually. My name is Cornell Hussain, and I'm the Vice President for Enrollment and Dean of Admissions at Allegheny College. We're located in Meadville, Pennsylvania, which is approximately 1.5 hours from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Cleveland, Ohio, Buffalo, New York, and Ontario, Canada. We're about 1,800 students, and one big fun fact for us is Allegheny College recently became the first college in the state of Pennsylvania and 8th in the nation to achieve carbon neutrality.
Thank you. Kendall?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kendall Spina, and I'm an admissions officer for Washington University in St. Louis, a medium-sized research-based institution in, you guessed it, St. Louis, Missouri. We offer 5 different academic divisions, including liberal arts, business, engineering, fine art, and architecture, and hundreds of opportunities to get involved outside the classroom as well.
And Jared?
Yes, good evening. This is Jared Rivers, Senior Associate Dean and Director for Diversity Enrollment at Bates College. Bates is a small private liberal arts college that is located in Lewiston, Maine. And we have 35 different majors, 20 plus minors, nearly 100 different concentrations. And for a fun fact, I guess I would tell you that Bates is one of the first in the nation to go completely test optional, something that we've been doing since 1984.
Wow, great, thank you. All right, I want to start with you, Cornell. When a student is starting their college search, what are some of the primary factors students should consider when making their initial list?
Okay, so for me, I think the one that's always at the top would be academic interest. And so for students who know what they're interested in studying, making sure that that institution or those institutions actually offer that as a major is really important. You know, one of my favorite stories is always a young man a few years back who told me, you know, the school I was working at, you're the top choice. And I thought that's wonderful. In admissions, we all love hearing that. My follow-up question to that is always, well, what are you thinking about studying? And I recall this young person saying, I want to study X. And it took me a second to realize that, wait, we don't actually offer that as a major. And so when I shared that with this young person, their response was classic. They responded with, don't worry about it. We can make it work. And I had to respond very quickly with, actually, we can't make it work. It doesn't work that way. And so academic interest, I think if you know what you want to study, making sure an institution offers that, really important. A few other factors I would say you should most definitely look at: size, location, affordability is not just about fit anymore, but just as important, affordability as well. And the last one, really quickly, just learning style. And for example, what I mean by that, if your best learning style is a small classroom setting, it's probably best to consider schools that match that style.
Thank you. Kendall, if a student is undeclared or has multiple interests, what are tips about exploring colleges would you offer?
Yeah, a couple tips that I would give if you are exploring and undecided. The first would be to look into the different curriculums offered at the schools you're interested in. Some schools will have a core curriculum and give you a little introduction to a bunch of different areas. Others will have extra requirements that you want to make sure you fulfill. Some schools require a writing requirement or a physical education, some sort of requirement. So academic flexibility and how much time you have to explore before declaring a major can be really helpful to figuring out where you ultimately want to go. And then the second tip I would give is test drive your area. No matter where you are, go to the closest schools to you, even if you don't think you're interested in applying, and learn more about what type of school they are, what they offer, and how that can help you learn about what you're interested in and exploring further.
Great. Thank you. Jared, what are some factors that may be initially overlooked but students should consider?
Some factors that students might overlook that they should consider. Well, I would definitely point to the success of their graduates. You know, it may be helpful if students can get a sense of what graduates are doing after their experience on each of our college campuses. What is the trend like? Are they jumping right into job employment? Are they headed off to graduate and professional school? And if so, what are those admit rates for those students? You know, talking to other individuals who have attended our institutions or a particular school that you might be looking at, I think can give you a greater sense of what you can expect. A lot of our schools will offer alumni interviews as a part of our process. And so it's just a matter of reaching out, and we can certainly help students, you know, get those interviews set up. And again, you can learn a lot through our alums.
Thank you. Cornell, what are some resources students can use when exploring colleges, including recommended college search websites?
Yeah, I've got a few you know, search websites that I think would be beneficial for students. So College Board, Princeton Review, College Navigator, CapEx, and I'd throw in niche, you know, as well, to name a few. You know, one thing definitely I think for students to be cautious of when they create a profile on these sites is the amount of emails they're going to receive shortly thereafter. And so in some ways, it's a mixed bag. And so I tell them, just be ready to receive tons of interest and love from a wide variety of colleges after you submit a profile on a college search website. You know, also, you know, while these sites are a great place to start building a list, at some point they should go directly to the school's websites that they're interested in. One of the reasons I always say this is that for some of those search websites, they do charge, you know, fees at times for an enhanced profile, and not every institution will spend resources for a premium profile.
Thank you. Kendall, how should costs be considered when making an initial list? How can students find out more about the actual cost of a school versus what's listed as the basic, you know, tuition and fees on their website?
Really excellent question. I think the best way to answer it is students should be able to keep their dreams, but base them in realities. So keeping finances in mind throughout the college search process is really important. There are all types of costs that I think would be really great to ask a current student about. Things like how room and board play in, a meal plan, if there's an activities fee, what kind of health coverage the school offers, and any kind of insurance that they might say, those kind of things. So I think reaching out to admissions officers, to current students, is a really great way to get direct contact about what those extra costs are. But also don't let it limit you. Always apply for financial aid. That's my biggest piece here, is you don't want to gamble with that money, and you never know what school is going to admit you and offer you all of the money that you would need to attend. So don't limit yourself, but make sure that the financial resources are there when you're applying.
What's the best way to find out more about colleges you're interested in? If you can't visit a school, what are other ways to get a feel for that campus?
Yes, that's a fantastic question. And obviously today, in light of the COVID-19 crisis, it makes it very difficult for students and families to visit campuses. But I would tell them many institutions have adapted quite quickly to this virtual world that we're in. And so I would not let it inhibit you from visiting those institutions, albeit virtually. Many of us are doing information sessions. Many of these institutions have virtual campus tours. There's something called U-Visit that really provides lots of different campus tours for people. You know, we're hosting lots of different panels and many events through many other organizations as well. And so I think, you know, families and students need to direct themselves to the websites of those institutions, see what exactly has been made available. And by doing many of those sorts of things, you'll also be demonstrating your interest. We institutions, we typically keep track of the kind of contacts that we make with individuals. And many of those sorts of steps can play into admit decisions later on. Obviously, we want to admit students who we think are academically prepared and a great fit and match for our schools, but we also want to admit students who we think really want to be on our campuses, and so it helps to have been in touch. And on top of that, stay tuned. Hopefully a lot of this will pass, at some point, and we'll be welcoming people back to campus, maybe in smaller groups, but hopefully that will happen soon.
Great. Last question for each of you. What is one last tip that you would give? And we'll start with Cornell.
Great question. And I will try my best to keep this as simple as possible. So my one tip would be true to yourself as you create your college list, and choose schools based on your interests and what's important to you. With that said, try to limit the noise around you, or you'll end up creating a college list based on everyone else's interests and not yours.
Great advice. Kendall?
It's really hard to limit it to just one, but I'm going to follow the rules. My biggest tip, and what I did actually to make my college decision, was I went back and I read the mission statements of the schools I was admitted to, which is not something that most 17-year-olds find themselves doing. But I think it's really helpful to inform yourself how everything at that school, what the core of that school is going to base itself off of. So college is more than just the classroom. It's so many more opportunities, community, resources, internships, research, et cetera. So knowing what that mission statement is, if that's a statement that resonates with you, how you hope to continue your learning, it's going to help you make a really informed decision about where to apply and ultimately where to choose what's best for you.
And Jared?
I would say first and foremost, there are approximately 4,000 institutions of higher ed in the United States. And so there are lots and lots of different options for students. And so definitely keep that in mind. Life is what you make of it. The same is true of your college experience, no matter where you end up. It's really what you do as an individual, that will be the biggest difference maker in the end. But beyond that, I would say, given that 75, maybe 80% of the applicants at a lot of our selective institutions are academically admissible, when you can really highlight what you're going to add to our community in terms of extracurriculars or talents or skills or passions, diversity, culture, we're looking for all of those sorts of things. And so that can certainly help an applicant bubble to the surface out of such a competitive pool of applicants.
Great, thank you. Well, on behalf of the coalition, I'd like to thank you for your time today. The information you gave will be really informative to our students. So again, thank you, and we look forward to maybe chatting again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.